This is Power 102 Digital Friday. On a Friday, we have the Fathers/Single Fathers Association for Hard Talk. The topic, fatherhood and the political landscape. Hard Talk starts now with hosts Rondell Fields and Ted Jones. Gentlemen, are you there with me? Let me repeat the topic for today, fatherhood and the political landscape. Standing by for hosts Rondell Fields and Ted Jones. Soon we'll be joined by Marlon for today's discussion on the topic, fatherhood and the political landscape. So in the meantime, it is Power 102 Digital Friday. And like I said, on Fridays, the Fathers/Single Fathers Association in the spotlight for Hard Talk. Gentlemen, are you there with me? Okay, stand by, folks. We are going to link up in a short with these esteemed gentlemen for today's edition of Hard Talk.
The thing fix. If you tell James don't climb the wall and he slip and he had a fall, everybody go see you have good mount.
And of course, we are inviting gentlemen and ladies too to log on Power 102 Digital, and you'll
go see you have good mount. Good mount. But don't ever
let me say good afternoon to Mr. Ted Jones and Fields. They are now joining me here at Power 102. Wendell, are you there? Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. This thing called technology, boy. Oh gosh.
Oh,
yeah.
Good afternoon, guys. Good afternoon, guys.
Good afternoon, Ted. Good afternoon, Ted. Good to see you. Good to see you, David. It's a while to be on.
Yes, miss you.
Yeah. It's been a while. I'm busy one. We had a holiday next week.
Yeah.
Then I had a funeral last week. So I know the guys have been doing. Must say love and thanks to Wendell Grant, Siobhan Lewis, Ted Jones, Marlon. These guys continuously doing the scenes behind the scenes. Yes. Sometimes the people think it's just Rondell Fields alone, but these guys, Ted in Tobago, Marlon in the central area in the schools, Wendell in South, Siobhan East-West corridor. So I mean, it had to take your hats off to these guys for the humanitarian service that they've been doing to this country in Trinidad and Tobago. And I think people underscore the value of that, because trust me, it's not a mentally easy job at all. And a number of things would have happened, a number of events would have happened. We could touch on it before we really go into the topic. This month is Mental Health Month. You understand? For men, we hear people talking about all other celebrations this month, but we only recognize this one more than anything else, apart from our Father's Day celebration as well. We passed Father's Day last Sunday. Belated happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. I know I wasn't in the show last week to wish you guys a happy Father's Day. So happy Father's Day even to you, Ted. I know we have spoken. I ain't sure I was able to tell you directly happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to you too, Dave.
Yeah, same to you, brothers.
Very nice. Good. So today, I think it was important for us to really, normally the Fathers Association is not known to affiliate or even talk about politics per se. So many people would see the topic fatherhood and the political landscape and wonder, well, boy, this is a strange topic. I wonder if these guys on the year preceding our electoral bid, these guys looking to throw their hat scene or looking to support somebody. No, nothing of the sorts, nothing of that nature. At the end of the day, we remain and will continue to remain politically neutral. We don't pick sides when it comes to that. We are about humanitarian service and about working with whoever the people select to serve them. However, we understand the value and the significance of a government, and we understand even more than a government, we understand the value and significance of good governance. And we don't take it or don't want to take it from the perspective which most others take it from. Those who will say, this is a better political party, this political party, for whatever reason, is governing better than the other. I want to take it from the perspective of we, the people. What and how, what do we want to see, and how do we want to be governed? Because to me, Ted, and to me, Dave, that should be the first question on your mind. Now, I personally have never voted in a long while. I did vote when I just got over the age to vote, and I voted based on how everybody else possibly was voting, who I thought would have been making the best decisions for me in one area, without holistically looking at what I may have needed as a human being, a member of society, being a man, and a member of society, being a father. And I even realize now that nothing is wrong in stages of your life. And this is me just introspecting it. I still say I'm going and vote yet. But this is me in an introspection position of my life, because I think it is the first time, even for me, that I am given proper consideration of what is the value and worth of my vote. Is the value and worth of my vote today the same as it was when I was 18 years old? What has changed from between 18 years old in my life, given my personal experience, to where I am now as a 40-year-old person? And if I do that level of introspection, I will notice that, all right, I am now a father. I wasn't a father before. I may now be in the mid portion of my lifetime, even though we don't determine how long, but generally what we will consider the mid portion of somebody's lifetime. In the beginning, at that point in time, I was a new businessman. I am now a more experienced or longer standing business person. And I think that based on those differentiations, Ted, any person who is about to cast a vote could select and make a different choice at that point in time. Because if I describe to you my 18-year-old self versus my 40-year-old self, just from the explanation I've given you, they seem to be two different people. So I really want us to have that very hard discussion about what we consider or what we believe, not that we're encouraging anybody else, is important when it comes to a person generally casting a vote. You think you could have that discussion, Ted? And are we not having a discussion where we are telling anybody who to vote for? But basically, if it is a valuable thing in your perspective to vote, and if it is something that is valuable, what would we as adult men now possibly look at as valuable? We as fathers in this society, are we going to consider fatherhood when we're going to vote, if we decide to vote in this time? Or are we not going to vote because we don't think or see something that looks like they're going to consider the things that we think are valuable and important? I just see Mr. Rondell Grant joined us as well. Rondell, I know how much you heard what I would have said. You was with us when I was talking, Rondell? We'll just jump in.
Good evening, everyone. I just came in, bro.
Right. So, I mean, a little quick recap, because I want you involved in this conversation as well. As I said, many people may be surprised to see us discussing things when it comes or when it's regarding to politics. And I'm showing them the perspective of it's not that we're discussing who you should vote for, but rather what voting is about, if voting is relevant, if voting is significant, if it's changed from your younger self to your older self, what is the type of governance you should look at as a person, if it makes a difference for a single man, a married man, a father, a man who's not a father, these kind of things when consideration is there of casting a vote.
Rondell, sorry to cut, but let me ask you, you all hearing me properly? Because I realized that I was having some significant connection issues just now. So I just made a little switch. So you all hearing me okay, right?
Yeah, you loud and clear.
Right. So every time I try to actually say good evening to the rest of Trinidad and Tobago, I know that, for example, something was cutting me and it was sounding kind of totally unprofessional. So we're not going to be blaming 102 for this one at all. This one has to be as a result of one of the carriers. But I just want to address, and welcome, Brother Grant. Welcome. On board, guys. Yes, but let me just jump on something that Rondell said earlier that I really just thought that I should really endorse. The thing is that unlike Rondell, I think I may have voted in most of the elections. Not all, but certainly most. And I, up to this time of my life, cannot be said to have voted directly one way all the time, simply because, as Rondell was indicating, many times and stages in your life, there are certain things that are much more important. You can, in fact, as a younger person, vote more adventurously. And as you get a little bit older, you start to think that, listen, governance is really about some people that you are placing in to support, to do what you wish for them to do. And as a result of that, you hold that whole process um, a lot more sacred, as it were, right? So I just wanted to throw that in, and also because I know that, in Rondell's preamble, it was a little bit difficult for me to be able to say much because of the internet issues, right? But let's see how it goes for the rest of the program, Brother Grant.
Yeah, guys. You hearing me?
Yes, I'm
Yes.
hearing you.
Yeah. So
I don't know if you guys hear.
you guys hearing me clearly?
I'm
Yes.
hearing you well. Are you all hearing me?
Yeah. So,
Loud and clear.
yeah, we apologize for the little technical difficulties and the shipping to try to get better service where we are right now. But as I said, Ted, that's it. And I think it is critical and important per se because we need to see that even as advocates, I could point out that it is valuable to have those who in authority hear your cries, hear your claims, and support them. And no matter, I mean, from my experience, I don't think, I can't say, I don't want to say I don't think, but I think that it is important that if you advocate for a position, talking from the advocate's position as well now, if you've advocated for a position, if you've seen and proven certain positions to successive or to multiple heads of state or leaders of state, I think it is a frustrating place if your sentiments are hardly ever heard. And that is why I pitched to the point of the advocacy with fatherhood, and I connected it to fatherhood as well. Because I could tell you, and I'm saying this with successive governments, the ones that have heard us, the ones that have heard our lobby, the ones we have appealed to, the ones we've gone before the Joint Select Committees on, if I am quite honest now, to take a position, it is challenging for me. And I think I think, and this is a personal perspective that I am giving here. I think it is challenging for me to sit comfortably, introspect, and make a decision at this current time. If, as I can explain now, that I am looking more toward a different position than when I was 18 years old. At 18 years old, I was not a father. At 18 years old, I didn't have dependents. At 18 years old, I didn't have certain things that I have now. At this point in life, for me personally, it is a difficult position. It is a difficult place to cast a vote. And my thing is, when you're in a situation, you would hear people say, persons like me is part of the problem. So in a position where you may want to vote, you may want governance. What do you think you're left to do, Ted?
Well, I will tell you guys this, and that's a very good question. But for me, I think the philosophy of my voting has always been that I just think that in some small measure, I must work to put in support or put into power the better of the two goods or the lesser of the two bads, right? But fundamentally, there has to be that. Now, as I said, that was when I was younger. No, you remember that I'm now a part of advocacy. I'm part now of recognizing that people who wish to serve me, right? And the whole concept of servant leader comes up in the whole principle of governance, right? So the people who wish to serve me by leading my affairs to the House of Representatives, because that's what they do. They serve us by leading our affairs to the House of Representatives. So they are both our servants and our leaders at the same time. So that's the kind of conundrum when we speak about the concept of servant leadership. So you have that kind of personality. So who is best able? And obviously at this point, I'm just like you guys. I don't have a say. This is not a program where we are going to be advocating one party over the other, but that the politicians would listen, that would know that the voice of men are very, very crucial and should be taken very crucially if they are interested, for example, in moving forward to represent us. Because that's the fundamental thing about governance. How we have it in Trinidad and Tobago. It is representative style. And representative style obviously means that you must find a cadre of people that you call either your burgesses or your electorate or your supporters, find out what is their heart, present what you think we are with something called a manifesto. We say, yes, this is what we want you to do. You go forward and you promise, you get it done, and then we will elect you again or not based on the results of what you say. But fundamentally, everybody listening to us, especially the men, we must recognize that our governance or our government are not particularly we don't particularly serve them, except of course due to our duties, our work that we get paid for, but they also are paid to serve us and to carry forward our agendas. And I think once we establish that, then we can now start listing our list of demands and let them come to us and say, this is what we recognize that you are saying as men. This is what we are recognizing you're saying as women. This is what we are recognizing you're saying as boys. This is who we recognize you're saying as whatever demographic that we're representing. And then bring that forward and we test you on your capacity to do it.
Wendell, let me tell you inside again. Do you think, now listen to what Ted said, and what Ted sounds like a very good model and a very sound model to make or to take a voting stance and a position. Where I am one of those who say, at the end of the day, I am the one in the middle that's saying I'm not going either side because I don't feel compelled to. I understand Ted's sentiment where he is saying here what I will vote for the one I think that represents more of the position that I will willing to stand. Let me ask you two things. What is your position on that? If you have a position on what should drive you to vote or not to vote. And secondly, do you believe the average voter in Trinidad and Tobago takes the time to consider as much as they should consider? Very similar to what Ted might have just broken down for us there.
So let's be realistic. I agree with Ted on a couple points that he made. One, when he was younger, and he put it nicely, but I want to put it how I usually put it. You know, for a long time, my father introduced me to the world of politics and looking at politics in particular and looking at the performance of leaders and so on when I was 18, 17 years old, coming up to 18, where I would have been able to vote. And since then, I've been keeping my eyes on the progress, the behavior, the attitude, characteristics of politics and politicians in this country. And so I found myself always, when opportunity came around to vote, I found myself voting for the better of two evils. Said too good, the better, but I found myself voting for the better of two evils, right?
So
And
I said the better of two goods or the lesser of two evils.
consistently over the years, I kept doing that, and now for the last two consecutive elections, I found myself in a place where, for the last three consecutive elections, I found myself in a place where um, I was really in a quandary as who to cast my vote for, because I saw politics, whereas it was the lesser of two evils, I saw both become as evil as the other, in my view, right? So to cast my vote in in a particular direction was really difficult for me to do, and so I would have had to actually bring it down to those who call God name and understand what I'm saying. Those who call God name in their mouth and those who don't. And so that is the corner. I found myself cornered in that respect in order to be able to vote, right? And of course, being a follower of Jesus Christ, I would have had to cast my vote for the man who calling Christ's name in his mouth, right? That doesn't mean that he was any less evil than the ones who were not, right? And that is my opinion, and that is the way I see it. And unfortunately, you know, the how I see voting has been taking place over the years in this country, and it's a very sad situation, I must say, that people vote in a very tribal manner, right? They vote for the person who looks like them, came from the place they came from, um, talk the language they talk, serve the God they serve, and so on and so forth, right? And that is very unfortunate when the reality of it is that we should be voting for what is in the best interest of our country. And we should be holding those that we vote for accountable. Now, Ted would have lamented on certain things, and I would say, um, ideally, under the Westminster system, ideally, those whom we select, whom we vote for, they are supposed to represent us. They are supposed to work for us. We are actually hiring them to administrate the affairs of the country on our behalf. That is what it is supposed to be under the system of democracy. But I beg to say that what we hold up as democracy, um, it's in my view, it's not looking like democracy at all to me, and it has not been looking like democracy for a very long time. And that is very sad because, Ted said they're supposed to represent the interests of the people, and that is the reality. But as far as I have been observing, they have not been representing the interests of the people. They have been representing the interests of themselves. And I could give you a little example. Um, there was one attorney general who one of the first motions he would have brought before the parliament was to amend the salaries and the pensions of the politicians, to increase salaries and pensions of the politicians. And then I hear the Minister of Finance within recent time, a year or so now, talking about actually taking away, increasing the age of the of retirement so that people will not be able to get their NIS at 60, but they will get it much later. And basically, when you listen to the age that he is suggesting, the Bible says it is appointed unto man to work for 70, and this man is suggesting an age where literally you will have to work until you're dead, right? So you will get no pension, right? So when I see a government or politicians, I don't want to really say government because both of them agreed, right? Both the opposition and the ruling party agreed with the motion that was put forward to increase their salaries and to increase their pension plans and so on. And I mean, we have our opposition leader who is getting a retired prime minister's salary and an opposition leader's salary, and refuse to vacate the office to make the party a more potent party for people to vote for. Right? So when I look at it, that's my opinion again. And when I look at it, I see for these politicians, it is all about the money. It is all about serving themselves and their own best interests. I can't say that they're doing a terrible job of running the country. I will not say that. Right? Listen, I will give my prime minister sticks, but I love that man to death, You understand? I love my prime minister. I will say, I don't like his attitude. I don't like the manner in which he behaves. I think that he could do a much better job, but I love my prime minister. He's the prime minister of this country. You will never hear me say Rowley. You will always hear me say Dr. Rowley. And I will reprimand people who take the man name in their mouth without a handle. You understand? But at the end of the day, there are things that can be done for the citizens of this country and should be done for the citizens of this country. The human resource, the male man in any country is a very valuable very valuable resource. Right? You could have how much natural resources you want buried in the ground in any country, whether it be oil, gold, pitch, diamonds, whatever. If you do not have the male human resource to extract it, to work it, to get it out, to make it usable, then you have nothing. Right? So it really amazes me that the human resource, the male man in this country is being neglected to the extent that he is being neglected. And the voices of the males that are crying, and I mean, look, 10 suicides over the last period, which is what, within a month's time, bro? 10 suicides. 10 men have killed themselves within the last month, right? And nobody makes a comment. Nobody is alarmed by that. The Minister of Health has nothing to say. The Prime Minister has nothing to say. Isn't that alarming? And we're not even talking about the murder rate here, about the amount of men dying at the hands of criminals, or men and women dying at the hands of criminals and being murdered, being robbed, and so on. We're not even talking about that. We're just talking about the fact that I find that very alarming, bro. That's a crisis. That should be a national crisis.
Correct. I mean,
You know,
why should a
Brother
man,
Grant,
why should 10 men find it necessary or feel that they are so hopeless and there's nowhere for them to turn to in less than a month's time that they had to kill themselves? Why?
so,
correct.
you know, I just, no, of course, when you went to the thing of suicide, it struck a nerve because I'm telling you this, that the 10 men, the symbolism of those 10 men that would have taken their own lives is also a measure. It is a measure of the despair in general. That's a part of everyday living. One of the things that I want to say, you know, sometimes when we ask, why isn't our prime minister speaking about this or a minister speaking about this? Remember that most of the things that come to us on the air would in fact be responses to questions. You will
Correct.
hardly, you know what I mean, 10 men dying or anything like that may not require what you call an open press conference, where the prime minister or any prime minister across the world or any president across the world may say, all right, let's hold a press conference for that. However, the fact that it is not being spoken of also speaks to a greater issue. It means that the 10 men over the past month that have committed suicide is not even getting the attention of press. Now, if press was interested, then press could ask Sir Prime Minister, one of their many pressers that they have, what is going on? What do you have to say about the suicide rate among our men? What do you have to say about our failure rate in terms of our boys and maybe the secondary school system, the lack of performance? What are we saying? What is your position? Let's get him to answer a position. I want to
Agreed.
understand.
No,
So,
totally.
so, so, so what we find actually happening is that we have a society in no, here's how I look at politicians. Politicians are obviously about votes. It's what we do, right? Brother Grant is maybe one of the best advertisers here. I don't know if one or two will send their invoice. But the thing is, he's maybe one of the best mechanics in Trinidad and Tobago. But Brother Grant only would respond to cars that are making a particular kind of noise. If your car working, then there's no need for Brother Grant. Brother Grant is going to respond to cars that are giving trouble. It is the very same thing. For a politician to be viable, he responds to the noise that is made. And the thing is that we have to talk to society. Trinidad and Tobago has to listen to us when we say that not enough people are interested in the issues that cause men, 10 in the last month, for example, to commit suicide.
Let me jump in later.
Politicians have nothing to respond to,
Well, let me jump in
unfortunately.
later. And I agree with that to an extent. That, as I say, the noise need to be made, or possibly we look at noise sometimes in one sense, audible. But sometimes it could make no.
Mhm.
Sometimes the evidence is there that something is wrong. So let me try the little
Yes.
mechanic talk. The engine mightn't start to knock as yet, but you might see a stream of engine oil falling on
Check
the floor.
light,
How I do
check
the
light,
windmill? Good.
That's
the check light on the dash.
So it does start to knock
right.
yet, but you're seeing evidence that it's going bad.
That's
And the
right.
thing is, they have the statistics. The thing is, and I don't, when I talk about government, I'm not only talking about those who are in government and cabinet and these places. I also
Right.
include the opposition in that. Because as you
Correct,
both have been saying, these are members of parliament who are supposed to be representative of their constituents
That's
who voted them.
correct,
Those men who died all had members of parliament.
correct.
And at the end of the day, if you are from an area and word has come to you or you're seen advocacy from particular groups speaking about men killing themselves in record numbers, showing statistics of the murder rate of men being killed in record numbers, seeing statistics of homelessness of men in record numbers, and you being a sitting member of parliament, seeing the engine oil leaking out, you shouldn't even wait for the engine to start to knock.
No, but
Because
here's what
when
I'm
you
saying.
want their votes, you go out to their homes and seek it.
Oh, okay. So I hear the argument you guys making. Now, in terms of doing something about it is one thing, right? And we can't. Well, from my perspective, where I sit here in Tobago, I can't tell if anything is being done about the main suicide from an administrative perspective. What I was talking about initially was the fact that there's a laissez-faire attitude in our country concerning
Right.
issues of men. And as a result of that, we have systems in our country that also must call our politicians to book, right? We agree
Agreed.
with that. And
Agreed.
our systems is usually invested in what we call the fourth estate, the media, the reports. And what I am saying is that even if government is doing something about it, if they are not doing something about it, we don't know, we cannot know. You know why we can't know? Because nobody is asking questions.
Correct. I agree with you. And what I will tell you, many a media house would have informed me, and which to me makes no sense. They say they don't highlight when someone commits suicide because they believe it may encourage others to do so. So I said, but you plaster the papers with murder. So I don't understand.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
It's foolish.
I take
Go
your I
ahead,
take
brother.
your point. I take your point in two regards. Where yes, we understand that I would think a caring member of parliament or representative should see things bursting at the Thames and step in or intervene or partner with the relevant authorities or get the relevant agencies or lobby the cabinet to make moves. But I also agree with you as well. And as you have realized, that I don't even blame just the media and these places as well. I speak to men themselves. Because if men decide to come together and take some peaceful but strong form of action, I am certain their voices will be heard. I made
Amen.
one
Some
joke
form.
on a post on Facebook a day, and it wasn't a joke, it's actually very serious. If men decided to put down their positions for 1 week, there would be chaos in the society. And if it would have chaos in the society, it means that men play some very instrumental roles. And the thing is that I am having an issue with consistently is that for some reason, I can't say if it is because we have been battered into this position of silence or fear of being labeled or being stereotyped toxic masculine or being labeled as misogynist or whatever. Men, for some reason, for the past decade, have done horribly at advocating for ourselves, particularly in a group.
Yeah,
And
that's a point.
I, we have to be honest enough to say so that we will come together for everything. There's an event where men put on high heel shoes and run to support a feminine initiative, which I endorse and support that men could support women. Put on a high heel shoes to race. But if you call
What could
men,
you
look,
do that?
you call
What
men
could
up for
you?
work on Sunday. And it was a minimal amount of men that came out.
Maybe because you didn't have them walking high heels.
But it has me wondering, and this is why I I I think it is important for us to have discussions of this nature. Because what I want to lead to, Wendell made a number of points when it came to tribal voting, voting for the lesser evil, being cornered into a position to vote, which is very important. And is it, are we, or should we rather, as a society, now we're coming from the education perspective, should lower levels possibly of political science or some type of some form of political education start taking place at the primary school level, or even if not even in an academic setting alone, at a level at community centers or part of programs, even that you would see in scouts and girl guides and cadets. This form of education, political education, where we speak about what voting is, what an election is, how you carry out the process, who is allowed to vote, and also some of the things or values or the moral ethics of voting and the importance of electing persons. Do you think, gentlemen, that in our next generation it may yield better results, or do you think that the cultural stain that we've had for the last few decades will be so pervasive that even that type of education wouldn't be of assistance?
I think that what you're talking about there, though it is a very good idea and it's a workable solution. I think because of the culture that we belong to, and I have seen that both the opposition and the ruling party, they have tapped into that aspect of what exists in our society, and they have maximized its use to keep the people apart when it comes to voting, and to keep people voting tribally, right? So, and having grown up in a rural community that is predominantly East Indian, and also the PNM has never won in this constituency. That alone goes to tell you the extent of the tribal voting that exists in this particular area. And I can tell you of the culture because I grew up around them, and I grew up with the discrimination as a result of ethnicity and so on. And I believe that that is so deeply rooted in Trinidadians that it is going to be very difficult to get them to think about best interests of country before they think about the tribe to which they belong, right? So even though we may implement and employ instruments of education, I am telling you from what I have seen, from what I have experienced, from what I have seen successive generation do, and what I've witnessed and experienced, even my children experience the same sort of tribal behavior, right? That translates into voting when it comes time to vote. So I am saying, in my view, it is going to be very difficult. Now I could talk because I am on both sides of the fence, so people could say what they want. They could say that Grant is a racial man and he don't like Indian or he don't like Creole or whatever. I don't care because I in the middle, right? So I could talk about both sides because I lived in a rural community for a large part of my life, and then I moved to Port of Spain, and I lived among the other races for another portion of my life, and I was able to compare the differences. I was able to compare the commonalities and the common behavioral characteristics amongst them. And I could tell you, when it comes to voting, they're voting for the people, right? That is when you hear election time coming, that is the song that they're singing, right? On both sides, right? So I don't think that education, my brother, could deliver us from this sort of mentality. I think that we have to unlearn a lot of the things that the old generation has handed down into the minds, which is really the mindset and the stronghold that people have, right? And listen, the politicians, watch me, they're riding that jackass, right? They're riding it hard because they realize that this is the mindset and the stronghold that they have on people, and they just going for the ride.
Wow.
Another thing
Brother
you
Grant?
made mention, another thing you made mention of, Wendell, when you during your discourse as well, and I'm uncertain if people realize that. I wonder if they notice that there's many a time when it is beneficial in certain regard that parliamentarians on both sides know to unite, you know.
Of course. But I
You
think
made
people
one
miss that.
example. You, you gave us one example with the increase of salaries. And I could give you another example. I remember specifically when there was a call from the same salaries committee, the same committee that was telling them to cap themselves on luxury vehicles,
Yes,
not to be able to have that free flowing of exemptions as well. And they both came together at that point, even
that's
though the
right.
entire country was capped on certain
That's right.
exemptions pertaining to auto. But they came together to shoot it down.
That's right.
They made excuses together about the car that get sick. It is one of the few times that you would have heard them agree with each other.
Yes.
So
So guys, here's where
I say that
I'm
to
gonna
say that
get
even to the
extremely.
people,
But
come
guys,
again
this is
when
where I am gonna get. You're hearing me? You're
yeah,
hearing me,
again, you
guys?
know,
Listen to me.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
where I'm gonna get extremely unpopular here. You know, one of the reasons why politics and the act of politics and representative politics will never be attractive to me.
Mm,
These people get paid. What these people get paid, if I figure I have to go into that, would be a waste of my time. I'm telling all of that straight, right? The
right.
the 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 politicians in Trinidad and Tobago, I don't know about other places in the world, maybe in general all over the world, to me, are not paid sufficiently for me to be interested in politics at that level, right? I can be in charge of maybe 40 or 50 rowdy people and get a salary that is maybe much better than what our politicians get, right? And all you see that they just have to even deal with themselves as politicians. So I'm just saying that for me, I could kind of understand that anybody who is going into politics, right? Remember that if a chief executive officer in Trinidad and Tobago is working for something like $60,000 a month in one corporation, and then there are private companies who might be having people working for maybe $100,000 inclusive of perks, and then you now have an opposition leader or something working. I don't know what is the salary, $30,000, $40,000, right? I have, I am the, I am the lowest paid person in my family, and everybody for me, I think in terms of things are getting way more than what I think our politicians get. So for me, I can't see the best quality, the best minds in our country going into politics in the first place because it is absolutely not an attractive package in terms of packages. So there has to be some other type of person that gets into politics. Maybe somebody like Rondell Fields, who is not interested in a pay package per se, but might be interested in making something happen. There's that kind of person too, right? Or,
I understand.
or brother, who is a man of the cloth, right? May accustom serving people for free, you know. I know, brother Grant, I know you want to laugh at me
No,
here,
no,
but the
no, no.
point,
I take what you're saying entirely, Ted. I would, I
yeah,
would still think that. All right, not still think, but I would say that though they may not, and you see, first of all, I wasn't, and I don't think Wendell was debating what their salary was, right? I think we were
mhm,
looking at the fact that they can come together when it serves their
that's
agenda.
right, that's right,
That's the
that's
thing.
right. Mhm.
So So yes, I'm pretty sure they would have done their assessment across the region and see that they are paid less and see that they are XYZ. But what I am saying is that they come together to serve their agenda. And there are sometimes
That's
things that need to be passed or things that need to be prevented that they don't come together on just because the other person bring it. So if you could come together for monetary gain, or at least in the situations we see them coming together most time, is when it's going to give them an increase in salary or an increase in a exemption on a tax, which is a form of payment as well. Because a man
right.
might get $30,000, but he don't pay taxes for nothing else in his life. He don't pay traveling. He don't pay this. He have a million allowances. His salary plenty bigger than what it presents. So
Mm-hmm.
we are not debating the salary part because we don't have the salary information. But what I think we are saying is that we have seen situations where our politicians can come and do come together. And we are saying that, and the point I was pitching to make also is that the people who vote for them at no point, however, could decide to focus on what is important or best for them to make a decision. And that is why I was saying one of the hardest things to do, one of the most hated six-letter words in our life is change. And that is why in the
Yeah.
beginning I pitched to the point that when I am 18, is it automatic that based on what I am as an 18-year-old versus what I am as a 40-year-old versus what I am as a 60-year-old, does it mean it is wrong? It is immoral. I should never change. Is it wrong to do so in a political landscape? Have you betrayed your party if you do so? Are you voting with that level of allegiance? Is it sensible as, as a human being living in a changing society, having different governments come forward? Because if we are honest, not everybody in the same party presenting a government is the same style of government presented, even though it's the same party.
Correct.
So if the party style of governance is changing or has changed, is it wrong for me to change my position? And
Definitely.
these are some of the things. This is why I said, is it something or is it an avenue that we need to go down the road where there needs to be sensitization, where there needs to be um, education at some level where we know the forces of the tribal nature fighting against it. But I wonder if having these conversations that we have in here, where all three of us will have different versions or different views at point in time, if it is really going to help some of us who are about to vote think. Because you can't say, I born a PNM, I will die a PNM. You can't say, I born a UNC, I will die a UNC sensibly. If PNM could produce different forms of governments that will lead to different types of governance, and UNC could present itself with different types of governments that will lead to different types of governance. So why, however, are we, and I know it has a big, and that is why I would think, Wendell, also, the tribal nature is so important for the politician to appeal to, because it is one of the things they could show the people never change. It's the same type of people, it's the same people that look like you. We go see about you, we go take because we look like you, and you build and you vote on that particular premise.
Correct.
And I am hoping, gentlemen, I am hoping that these conversations, for me personally, I could start. I want to look at voting and say, I am different to you guys where you all vote for the lesser evil, right? It may be I could change my position and say this year or next year, I am going to do the same like these fellas. Let me give it a try. Let me have my chat with UNC, PNM, and even the new ones who want to come, who we could talk about the new political person jumping in the ring and what you all think about them after. I could put is it wrong for me to put a chart up and start scoring? And I can only score based on bills passed, bills that wasn't passed, things that they heard about and didn't heard about. Do I also score on what I see represented by the leaders in those parties?
So
If I
I
see
want
some
to
of them
jump in
coming
here.
from parties drunk, yeah,
I want to jump in here, bro.
jump in.
So I'm glad that you brought that point up, right? Because I have always been of the view since I crossed over a certain age line. I have been of the view when I look at the politicians and I look at the age brackets of these politicians that are holding on to positions of power and leadership in our country, I have been of the view that a lot of these men and women need to vacate those seats. Nobody should be asking them to do so. They should, in good conscience, vacate those positions. And because you see, I want to bring in the point that you have been making there. The landscape has changed, right? We are a different society today than we were back in 1967, 68, and into the 70s coming up the road. We are an entirely different society today. The needs of our society is different. The laws that govern our society needs to be amended. New laws, new positions and policies need to be taken up and formed and implemented and so on, right? And I want to say it as this, again, my opinion, and I want to say it plainly. I cannot see a bunch of geriatrics from an archaic age taking our country into the future. I cannot see that happening. I cannot see why these men and women, I call them dinosaurs, are denying the young people the opportunity to take hold of the leadership of our country and chart a future for themselves going forward. The mindset, we are living in a different age of thinking. We are living in a different age of technology. We are living in a different mindset altogether, right? The young generation of today, their needs are different from what these old men and women are even capable of thinking, right? Yet still, these old geriatrics are the leaders that are preparing a future for this young generation and the generation that is behind them, right? And I am saying, I am of the view that the young people need to be given the opportunity. These, and you know, Brother Ted made a very important point there, and he had me laughing because, I mean, he was saying something, and out of what he was saying, I was discerning something. So he made the point that the man who is an executive earning $100,000 salary or a couple $100,000 salary for the month, he's not going to get into politics, right? Now that man, obviously his level of education and intelligence and his ability to think and to do business would have him in such a salaried position, right? But what Brother Ted alluded to is the men who do and women who do get into politics and earn a meager salary compared to these men who will never, and women who will never get into politics. So you know what in plain language, what I heard him saying? That is only the dunce that are coming forward to offer themselves to represent us in politics. Because if the educated man who is the executive is not going to be doing that. But every election we have people galloping up there to offer themselves, right? To grab a meager salary. Then it means that they have no.
Brother
I
Wendell,
remember I said this is my view. You see, I remember you didn't say that, but you see
I did not say that.
Wendell Grant is
Because there's another way we could look at this. There are some people that are passionate enough so that money is not the
Don't go
desire.
there. Don't go there. Don't go there. Because you know what? If it is because of their passion to serve their country that they offer themselves up as representatives, how come when they get up there, I am not seeing that passion? Or I am not seeing that passion at all.
Correct.
How they join the crew? How they join in with the clique up there and become one of the boys or one of the girls? How is that happening? Where is the passion going? If I am passionate to serve my country
Correct.
and represent my fellow man in politics, when I get up there, the only way they will stop that passion is to kill me. Or perhaps,
But
or
and
perhaps,
as it,
or perhaps maybe when they get up there, maybe they feel threatened, their life feel threatened, so they just have to fall in line and that increase. I don't know what is going on in the gathering, right? But
but
at the end of the day, we this is something that we have to examine, and I know that Ted didn't say it like that, but I am hearing that aspect of it in what is being out of what is being said. Because at the end of the day, if the man that is educated, that is capable of earning a high income, will not offer himself up to serve, and the ones that are offering up themselves to serve for a meager salary, and we know that there's a whole lot more going on behind the scenes, which we can't talk about on the radio because we could be accused of libel and all of that. But at the end of the day, we know that there is a lot going on behind the scenes, right? So the little thin salary is nothing, there
right.
are more attractive things behind the scene.
Hmm. But let me go to the perspective now of the distance between the man on the ground who casts the vote and the man who receives the vote. Is it, do you think, I would ask this question, do you think it is because of the way in which the political system is set up that there's this level of distance? Or do you think it is all because of the person who has now assumed the position, he's become negligent, or he no longer, he become apathetic towards the need of the man on the ground? Or do you think it's a bit of both? When it comes to that distance that you see the poster of the man, you see the man walking the streets, you see him knocking on your door, you see him holding your baby and kissing your baby, and helping you cross the street, picking up a swiping grass when you're cutting grass during the time of that campaign. Is it that the work that the brother or sister has to do has now set a wedge between I, who I am the one who have been required, or my vote has been requested of me, and the person who receives my vote to the end? Do you think there's ways that gap to be bridged? I know the intent of the MP's office was to be able to bridge that gap. Do you think in society that citizens can say that they have the immediate or honest rather air of their member of parliament? And
I
if no, should we still call them members of parliament?
I think
Because
that
if you do not, oh, go
I
ahead.
I I believe that a lot of the people who put forward themselves to represent the people, I believe that they do so with the best of intentions, I believe that at the beginning,
Right.
a lot of them, most of them, I would even say most of them, their motives are pure. But I think that there is a what I call some tentacles.
So
I
does
can't,
politics have its own character, you're saying then,
yeah,
Wendell?
yeah. And I believe
Yeah.
that when they get in there, they have to toe the line. Excuse me. And this is why I said that, there are some politicians that I believe should not be there. I believe that the age where a politician is allowed to continue to put forward himself or herself to represent the people and to be part of the parliament, I think that age bracket needs to be adjusted. Um, that's my view. But there are some inside of there that even the ones who I believe would go in there with the best of intention, the best motives, and when they get in there, they have to toe the line, and so they are corralled in what they can and cannot do for the people,
Mm.
right? That's just the way that I mean. I have been looking intently at it for some years, and I mean, I see people in earnest and making promises and so on. And when they get up there, remember they need the support of the other members, the other politicians, in order to be able to deliver what they have promised. And I
Mm.
think that a lot of times they are not getting that support. They are being told what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. Right?
And I think
And,
it's evident between. Go ahead, go ahead.
and so it comes down to leadership, and we are men of the scripture, and the Bible makes a statement. It said, if the head is sick, the
Mm.
entire body will suffer.
Body.
So it has to do with headship, right? And then
Correct.
again, the scripture would have said, without a vision, the people perish. So it's two things. We have to have a head that is well and a head that has vision, right? Because all things flow from the head. If you get a
Straight
lash
down.
on your head, your whole body will suffer, right?
Correct.
So the reality is, and we would have seen that in the previous party, the now opposition party, when they got the opportunity to represent the country, we would have seen how a lot of their the politicians, they ran away with themselves because of the weak leadership of the
Mm.
individual at the time, right? And again,
Mm.
that's my view. Because I mean, we all know how many of them came up on charges for this, that, or the other. Men hiding out in Trinidad can't leave the country,
Mm.
and all of these things. But they were under a leader, right? So at the end of the day,
Mm.
um,
Let me,
yeah, go ahead.
as you're talking about leader, you're talking about leadership of the party, leadership of the political party per se. We've seen from the beginning of time different fragments and forms of what they call third parties, what they call aspiring political leaders of different letters, different ethnicities, different hailing from different areas throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Do you think, Wendell, not to say that a third party may just enter and take power, but do you think a third party force could come up from the ground and be a real and a reasonable sound, loud enough, if not to even get into government, that they could get into opposition? Have you heard from all the political hopefuls who would want a chance to enter into the parliament? From what we've seen so far, have you heard anything that you think has sounded any different? Or are we still just dealing with new political parties and old politics based on your personal view? I'm telling you
Well,
mine before you give yours. My
let's
personal
put it.
view,
Go
go ahead.
ahead.
My personal view is that to me, it always seems to be old politics, new political party. And
Well,
I think that is why a third party is hardly ever attractive. No one coming with new ideas, no one coming with new discussions, no one raising current issues like you and I just spoke of. We spoke of the human resource. We always lobby about it. No one talking about the issues faced by men, issues faced by boys in an intimate way or in a new and real way that will now jerk the minds of those or minds of those would-be voters to say this style of politics sounds different, sounds genuine, sounds weird, even if you want to call it like that. Unorthodox opposed to weird.
let me put it like this, bro. The way that I see
Wendell?
it, you hearing me?
Yeah, go ahead now.
Yeah, the way I see it is that it's the same shit on a different day.
Hmm.
That's what I see all your friends as, right? And
Correct.
I'll tell you how I see it. I was approached by one of the new political parties a few years ago to join with them, and
Right.
my answer to the guy, because I looked at the so-called leader of that political party and his behavior, right? And I said to the person who approached me, why would I want to exchange one arrogant, disrespectful, hostile individual who has no experience running a country for one who has the experience to totally screw up a
And
country? He has no experience running the country or screwing it up. But you want me to represent, to work with him when I'm already working, supporting one who has all the experience doing that.
right.
Because because each one of them that I see coming forward, same type of arrogance, same type of disrespectful behavior, same type of hostility when questioned, same sort of fickle emotional responses, like they wear
Mm,
their emotions on a sleeve. I mean, I am not a politician. I am not in public life as they are, and I don't respond to foolishness. And yet,
correct.
these men who totem PhD, you can't say nothing about them, and they are supposed to know that they are operating in a realm, in a world where people will say things about them and criticize them. And the minute you say something about them, they jump out with an emotional rant and they want retribution and they are attacking you with words, right? What is that? How can you be a politician representing people if your emotions are so fickle, right? And
Agreed.
and, and so
Agreed.
the leaders that I see putting forward themselves as future would be prime minister, except for the last young lady who offered up herself, all of them their behavior is the same bacchanalish, arrogant, disrespectful, hostile kind of behavior. What is that? Is that something that is endemic to Trinidad and Tobago or something? I keep wondering why is it that
Agreed.
all huh?
And it is good that you make that observation because I think that is another key component for when you are selecting who you want to vote for. That is
Correct,
either an addition of a mark or a subtraction.
correct.
But are we or do we consider these things?
I
Or
no,
are we saying that is it? Do we consider who presents themselves for leadership? Do we consider how they carry about themselves? Do we consider their portfolio? Do we consider their past history? Are they projecting the type of thing you want to be proud to call a leader?
bro. when you have a tribal wedge up your ass, you can see anything?
Well, exactly so. And you see, this is why I haven't this conversation when them. So hopefully, whether it's one or two or three people thinking logically could realize that hey, change is okay to do. One. Two, you need to look for more than just what the eye meets. You need to understand that this needs to contribute to you as well, contribute to your community space, contribute to your family. You also can also look at your life back at a younger age, look at your life at a mid age, look at a life at this age, and feel free to make a different choice if you see that is the best decision for you at this point. I
Right.
think traditionally and even culturally, growing up as a Trinidadian, you have to hold fast and hard to some level of a fake allegiance or loyalty. Even though the person may have done nothing or the party may have done nothing to earn your allegiance. But I born a UNC, I will die UNC. I born a PNM, I'll die PNM.
So
Gary is my neighbor, I go vote for Gary. I
so
love Pandey, I go vote for Michaela. I want people to truly, for the first time, if ever, put some thought from now into who you want to vote for, win, lose, or draw.
and at this
And
point,
I think that may yield a better result.
at this point, bro, I just want to make sure that our listeners and whoever may have joined in, I want to make sure that they maintain perspective. We are not engaged in this conversation as a result of politics, as a result of trying to convince people in one direction or another. We are engaged in this conversation because the politician and the people that we put into power affect the quality of our lives, right?
Correct.
Their policies, the things that they do, their failures, their lack of proper representation affects the quality, the safety, and well-being of the lives of our citizens. And each voter is a citizen of this country. And so we are having this discussion in light of that. Uh, the fact that
Correct.
10 men over the last month have committed suicide, and we have not heard a single voice from any of our politicians or any of our government departments or ministries lamenting this. The fact that the Fathers Association for more than 12 years has been lobbying the government, the selected ruling party, um, to make amendments and implement laws and policies that would improve the lives and the well-being of fathers and children and women as well in our country. These are the reasons why we are talking about politics, because politics impact on these things. So, bro, I just want us to make sure that we keep people in perspective so they don't say when the rant and fields were ranting about
Correct.
UNC and PNM, right? We are talking
Correct.
about the politics in relation to how it is affecting the quality of our lives.
Correct. And if we had to bring this back to fatherhood, as was our initial position in the first place. As a father, when you inspect what's taken place, we've had successive governments that's taken the helm. None so far have seen the relevance of increasing stuff like paternity leave. Look, we had 11 fathers, 11 babies who died with fathers who I am certain was running up and down to find time to be able not only to heal for themselves, but to be there for their wives. Some of their wives might have gone through postpartum depression. Some of their wives may have had C-sections to birth the stillborn child and suffering. And in a time and an age like this, where the very same political pundits for years have told fathers to step up, they have been unfair to fathers. They've discriminated against fathers when it comes to stuff like paternity leave. In a society like this, we've seen men become, for manhood particularly, we've seen men become imprisoned for children that is not even their own. So we have to be able, or have to consider rather, when these things take place to you or to somebody you know, and you are a man or you are a father, and I'm sure women have those things that they may have dear to their heart when it comes to them being women and them being mothers, that they are most always vocal about. We as men and fathers, who are most times the silent ones, have to also exercise our rights and have to make our demands, have to reach out to our members of parliament who want to be our members of parliament and make of them demands that is going to impact your life and the life of your sons and the boys in your community. We quoted statistic for you. You can't feel comfortable as a man knowing that 90 point that you have a son and a daughter, or you have a son and no daughter. How could you feel comfortable in a generation that says that he's 90.7% more likely to be murdered than the average girl? How could you feel comfortable that if you have a son, that he is 84% more likely to commit suicide than the average girl? That is 94% more likely to be homeless on the streets of Port of Spain than the average girl his age. These are the statistics that men are facing. And these are the statistics that these boys, if they don't get worse or don't get better, are going to face the same thing. So if we are seeing, so it's not just about taking it lightly when we say in the last 2 months we've seen 10 persons kill themselves. You have to ask yourself from that perspective, who's on next?
That's
So when
right.
you think of murder, who's on next? If you are 90%, if they are 90.7% more likely to. When you think of suicide, who's on next? When it's 84% more likely for boys than girls. That is a ridiculously high amount, you know. And to see this high amount so rampant in society, in these issues pertaining to fathers, pertaining to men, and pertaining to boys, and nothing being done by state first, more so than anything else, it should be of great concern to any parent, any man, any mother, or any person, young person who knows that in the future they would want to father children. But sometimes we only wait when we are in a circumstance to seek a correction and solution for it. And by the time you get into that circumstance, at your bottom dollar, there is nothing to help you.
And
So this
so,
is what we are saying. We are saying that we must, from every perspective, we are talking as fathers. And every father, when he is about to vote, should consider these things. As I said, mothers will have other things that they will have as a level of concern, and they have to consider those things as well.
correct,
But you cannot take upon yourself a position where you're just going to vote because somebody looks like you.
correct.
Oh, my mother used to vote like that, so I'm voting like that, or I vote this way my entire life, so I'm voting like that. We've shown you that over time, governments change, even within the same party, their styles of governance change. Why is it so hard then for voters to change also if they need to? There's no, I don't even think, Wendell, any man should have any allegiance set in stone for any party per se.
I
You must
agree.
be allegiant to what the person offers at that point in time.
What is in the best interest
If
of
they're
our
offering
country?
something that you would correct, that your allegiance must be to your country, as I
Correct.
say. Your allegiance mustn't be to the party. So if the party decide here what we want to make the whole place a communist place, or we want to make the place where we separate this race from that race, you will support the party still because that is your party. Is you have to understand what you are supporting more so. It's their style of governance, not supporting to get them into government just because you supported them all the years of your life. And I believe if we start considering these things, Wendell, that's why I say maybe it's time for us to start educating the younger ones, the young ones in standard 4 and 5, or not even standard 4, Earlier than that, from preschool, as into the value, importance, and relevance of making good decisions when putting persons into elected power.
We could do that. Let me just jump in. We could do that, bro. But when Nani or RG or Nana tell you that if you vote for that party, you're getting no inheritance, who you going to vote for?
Aye, aye. I hear you. I hear you.
I live in amongst it, I could tell you. I could tell you the inner workings of the circle, how it takes place. So even though the individual has a mind of his own or her own, there are things that are impacting upon that person to influence that person to keep that person voting in a tribal direction. And don't think that is any different on the other side too, eh?
Of course, I know that. I know that both sides.
Right.
Some men forcing it to vote in a particular direction or might threaten your life
You
because
understand?
promises made, and that's the next thing with politics. And I say I wouldn't delve too deep into it, but I have seen politics, a political style on both ends and multiple ends sometimes, where the very same elements that they have problems with, they form allegiances with them
Correct.
to get the vote
Correct.
because they control the voting population.
Correct.
So is this the type of party or parties that we should follow, or should this be allowed? Is there any way we could treat with this? You understand? Because I realize some political parties will go to any element that has a level of measure and control over a body of people.
Influence.
So whether it's the church, the religious leaders, whether it's the community leader, whether it is persons who are prominent, the rich and wealthy in the area who are prominent ones there, this is the party style. So should there be a code of ethic also implemented that political parties must first display?
Politicians and ethics, bro.
How we going to change this? How we going to fix this? This is what the conundrum is. This is what the conundrum, and this is the discussions we need to have openly, honestly, and vent and have them try to give us answers. And we have to try to put the hard questions to them and to ourselves. And maybe that may provoke a better behavior from the existing and at least if not the existing, the wannabes.
Exactly.
Because if we're not calling the existing to any better behavior,
yes.
All the wannabes want to do is to come and emulate the ones we have already. So we're not even getting a better form of wannabe.
Yeah.
So I think we really have to keep having this conversation on the political landscape. As I said, we're not politically driven. We're not a politically driven group. But if we don't have this discussion also, a lot of our advocacy goes in vain. It does,
Yeah,
Wendell.
because
we don't make people understand.
The things that we are advocating for, it is within the power of the politicians, within the power of the legislature to change or to give us the things that we have been asking for.
Correct. Correctly so. And people need to understand that. So people here would always say, Mr. Fields, Mr. Grant, keep up the good work. Keep lobbying, don't back down. Keep going. But I continue to say, the advocates, we the advocates are doing what we have to do, You have seen us advocating on television, on radio, on newspaper, social media. You've seen us in all the outreach meetings. You've seen us have seminars. You've seen us in the Joint Select Committee. The advocates, many a time, and the NGOs are doing what they're supposed to do, those who are genuine,
That's right.
But sometimes it comes for something for the people to do.
That's right.
So the people have a responsibility to do something as well. So just as you want the advocate to continue advocating, you as the people have to make the relevant and right demands.
Correct.
And that is where we have a challenge when it comes to fatherhood and the landscape. And that is why we will continue to call on fathers for this entire year not to stay, have allegiance towards any particular party, but have allegiance to a party that decides to come and govern in a way that is not discriminatory to your fatherhood, in a way
Um,
that is truly supportive of your fatherhood, in a way where they've set provisions in place for you to be the best father that you can be,
correct.
not leave you barren when it comes to the enrichment of fatherhood, and then go in front of a political pulpit and then ridicule and berate you on top of that. And that is the position, and we could speak from that position when it comes to fathers because we are representative. We the MPs for fatherhood. So we could
Correct.
speak to the fathers on this perspective and the young men who would be fathers in this perspective of what they should use as one of those key factors when making a vote. I am a man. What are you going to do for men in this
That's
society when
right.
you've seen these kind of
That's right.
statistics going out about the social issues I have? I am a
That's right.
father. What are you going to do for fatherhood in this society? Before, Wendell, before you become the engineer, the mechanic, the businessman, the whatever, and we may take off all those mantles at some point in our life due to age or due to sickness or due to whatever. We will always be men and we will always be fathers. If we are fathers, that wouldn't change. So
Correct.
why are those two critical components you make no demands?
Correct.
So definitely, I know we winding down to Emir Granty. Definitely, I would like to call on men. Granty, I know you will give your piece after too. I would like to call on men to open your voice, open your mouths, lend your voices, lend your will, lend your determination, lend your support. This is important. You are valuable, and I think a reason for this level of of apathy, sorry, is because men just feel, boy, we just here for a time. We just here, we just work us. We don't have any value. We don't really contribute to society. We really dogs. We just no. We are worth more than that. Wendell just alluded to it. I just alluded to it. We are the engines. We are the most valuable human resource sometimes in this world, and not sometimes, all the time. The places men are willing to go, many tread there not to.
Correct.
No matter what we say, some of the jobs that men take on their shoulders, many women not going to do it,
That's right.
and that is the reality of it. So we must value ourselves. And if we value ourselves, we must ensure that others, particularly those who are in high authority, who adjudicate over us, who make policy that we need to follow, and who make pronouncements over us, consider us and value us also, value our contribution, value our existence, and value the fact that we are citizens of this great nation also. Wendell?
So I want to continue to encourage men. You see, the thing that we are talking about here, where we are talking about the political landscape in relation to men and in relation to fatherhood. At the end of the day, this being the election climate, we have to, as men, as Rondell said, when they come to solicit our vote, to campaign our vote, and that of our family, we need to ask them, what will you be doing? How will you be representing my interests as a man? How will you be representing my son's interests and my daughter's interests? Who are
Mm.
the generation of tomorrow and the future leaders? What are you going to be putting in place for them? Right now, men do not have paternity leave. Are my sons going to be able to have paternity leave stay home and help care for his newborn and assist his wife in her recovery process. I don't have it today, but are you going to put things in place in your tenure so that my children may have it tomorrow? These are the kinds of questions. How about you, Mr. Father, who is all happy in your marriage and in your relationship right now? If you become a single father tomorrow morning or next week and you need to have public assistance because you have young children that you have to take care of and you cannot go out to work, ask your representatives, what are you doing to ensure that men can access public access and assistance grant? Ask them those questions. Let them answer, right? Because these are the things. These are some of the things. Ask them about how are they going to make amendments to the system that exists right now, where the only non-criminal offense that carries a criminal penalty, which is maintenance. When a man misses four or more payments, he can be taken before the court, and according to the mood of the magistrate, he can be sent up to do jail time for not paying maintenance. None on the books of the law, non-payment of maintenance is not a criminal offense, but it carries a criminal penalty, which is jail time. Ask your political representative, how is he or she going to be addressing that? Because Mr. Man who very happy in your marriage today, tomorrow morning or Monday morning, you could become the victim of a broken marriage, and you could end up right there having to pay a maintenance which you cannot pay, and you could end up in jail, right? But the problem with our society is, you know what? That ain't affecting me. That is not my problem. But we have men coming to us now who come now and say, you know, Mr. Grant or Mr. Fields, 12 years ago when I first heard of you, I didn't have a problem, you know. But you know what? For the last year, I haven't seen my 4 children. Right? I never thought that I would have needed your services. I never thought I would have needed help in this area. Right? If the laws continue to be what they are, if the politicians continue to refuse to do what we have asked them to do, what we have represented the men of this country and put forward proposals that needs to be addressed, if the politicians continue to refuse to do anything, you could be the next victim who very happy in your marriage right now. Mrs. Tanti, Granny, your grandson, your son could be the next victim who needs help because the politicians that we put in place, that we cast our votes for, they have been refusing to represent us. Do you know that for two consecutive tenure political reign, we have been asking to have a meeting with the Attorney General, and they have refused. They have denied us that. That's the kind of representation that we are having in this country. And I need men to understand that you hold the power to hold your representatives accountable for their action or lack of action.
Before we sign off, gentlemen, it's been quite an informative program, and if I should say, very, very, very militant one of that. We have some messages here. I will not read all, but Ian Budu is saying, it's time men need to get rid of ego and stand together for their children to benefit. And he continues, time for congregate for the benefit of their children's future to get rid of egos. So those are some things I thought I should read. And I totally support what you guys are saying, because I too, like you, Rondell, stopped voting a while ago
Yeah,
for the sake of lack of representation.
correct, correct. So Trinidad and Tobago, once again, we must say thanks to Power 102 Digital for extending their olive branch to us. We look forward to these sessions every Friday. We're asking you guys to spread the word, keep spreading the word, because we want you guys to start to call in so that we can start answering a lot of your issues. We are also here for outreach. This week, we wanted to drive in on that point when it comes to your political power. As I said, we weren't here to speak on persuading anybody to go to any particular direction, but for you to value your political power, for you to understand that you are free to change, you are free to do what is in the best interest of yourself, your family, and your immediate space. And that is what we are here to do. That is what they call it, consider it a liberation of the mind. Because sometimes we are so bogged down and pinned down into tradition, we feel bound and committed to do things that we don't really have to do. So, Wendell, I would like to thank you. I'd like to thank Edward, Ted, and I'd also like to thank David again for you guys coming out today, taking any time out of your busy schedule today for us to have another pertinent discussion. Looking forward again to next week where we'll dive down into another topic. We're sure it's going to be as deeply um, deeply involving as this one was. And I'm hoping that we have some participation from those callers. Calling. I know some of you all are listening attentively, but we want you guys to call in, give your 2 cents, so that we could even hear the voice on the ground, so that we could respond to it. Right? So, guys, have a good weekend. We'll be in contact again. See you guys next Friday. Stay safe this weekend. Be responsible, act responsibly, and stay alive. That is important. So, Wendell, enjoy your weekend, bro. Dave, same thing. And Ted, have a good weekend going forward.
Blessed weekend to everyone. David,
Yes,
Ronnie,
All right.
Godspeed.
thank you, Rondell. And of course, thank you to Ted. That was today's edition of Hard Talk featuring the Single Fathers/Fathers Association of Trinidad and Tobago, right here at Power 102 Digital. You can log in every Friday at 4:15 till 6 p.m. for another interesting session of the Fathers/Fathers Single Fathers Association of Trinidad and Tobago.